Hi, and welcome to AI for UX. This is the space where UX researchers and product leaders stay current with AI innovations. I'm John Whalen. I'm the founder of Brilliant Experience. We're a psychology-driven product innovation firm. In each episode, we speak to a founder of one of the latest AI-enhanced research tools and dive into its inspiration and how it could benefit you. And just a quick note, these are not product endorsements. We always pay full price for any technologies we use, and no one's getting paid. It's just for us to learn together. So with that, let me get right into it and get started. I wanted to welcome Philip. Philip Brook is the co-founder of Voiceform, a fast and secure way to collect, analyze, and share data of all kinds, voice, video, and text. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this, Philip.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. I'm really excited to chat today.
Yeah, well, let's dive right in. And I know folks are really interested in voice form, and actually, in my world in UX research, it may not be as well known. And so, can you just tell us sort of who the target audience is for your product and the kinds of things it addresses?
Definitely. Well, why don't I dive into kind of who we are and what we do, and I'll also
Sure.
cover who our products used by and who it's kind of best for today. So we're a survey platform at the end of the day. Our goal is to combine the scale of quantitative surveys, the traditional surveys that everyone's familiar with these new exciting kind of AI moderated qualitative interviews. And what I mean by that is we don't want to replace surveys. So I was actually listening to one of your other recordings, and I saw
Mhm.
one of the founders mention that they believe surveys were stupid. We don't believe that. We think surveys are great, and we don't want to replace surveys. We want to build on something that works really well. So with our platform, you could create a traditional survey with matrix tables or NPS questions or anything like that. Combine it with these robust voice and video capture questions and AI follow-up probes. So it can actually follow up with the respondent kind of based on what they're saying as well. Our product is used today primarily by market research firms and then consumer insights teams as well and customer insights teams. But yeah, that's kind of who we are and what we do.
Yeah, and so maybe we're just sort of scratching the surface. So in general, how does your product? So clearly, there's this interesting interplay with your tool where it's somewhere between a classic survey and a qualitative interview, and you can kind of do a mixture. So maybe you can just tell me a typical scenario when a team or a product team might use your tool and kind of how their approach might be a little different than it might have been otherwise.
Yeah, so I could sit here and say that everyone can use our tool, but I don't think that's the case today. There's a few ways that people can use our tool. So let's say you're conducting a traditional survey, trying to collect feedback on a certain topic, and then you're kind of scaling qualitative interviews to follow up on those responses to gain some deeper insight. VoiceForm allows you to combine the two and have that scale with the quantitative questions and the structure as well. So we believe that quantitative surveys are really useful because of the structure they provide. And then also combining it with the qualitative kind of responses that you can collect within voice form as well. The different use cases include what we've seen just off the top of my mind would be in-app product kind of triggered surveys where someone is on a certain page for a certain period of time, or maybe they click the button that you want some feedback on. We can trigger it so that it pops up and says, "Hey, what do you think of this new feature?" And someone can provide feedback there. We're also seeing some concept testing, so you can upload images or even videos for folks to kind of provide feedback on as well. There's really a long list
Mhm.
of what people use VoiceForm for, even CSAT and MPS, and using
Oh,
VoiceForm to uncover the why behind their scores as well.
nice. Well, we certainly love figuring out the why of all kinds of things here at Brilliant. So
Right.
I'm with you. There are some things now that either you can have a body of data and it helps you to analyze it, or some that are sort of laser focused on helping with moderation, or even earlier than that, helping with strategy and brainstorming kind of things, even before you approach end users. So how is your, just so people know, where does Voiceform fit in? How do you find that you're a little different than some of the other options?
So there's probably a new AI moderated research platform every week now coming out, and I think that's really great. We believe that there's going to be kind of a boom of survey platforms and these AI moderated research platforms. Where we kind of fit in is combining the two. So we see a world where qual and quant gets along and they are kind of under one umbrella. I guess folks call it a mixed methods research approach. But we believe that we can combine the two practices of quantitative research and qualitative research under one tool. That's kind of where we fit in.
Mm-hmm. And I guess one thing I wanted to ask too was, in some cases, some more established tools are sort of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, bolting on or adapting to AI. But my understanding is that you're sort of built from the ground up with this. So just so people get a sense, like, where are all the places that's helping me as a researcher?
You know, AI is great and it's a core part of our product, but it's not the whole product. So parts of the product are traditional kind of survey tool features, I'd say. Where we find AI is useful is in a few ways, but we've also identified places where AI is actually not useful. So what I'll say is for the conversational aspect, so the AI probes that kind of engage with you, similar to an AI moderated interview, that's where AI is very useful. Also summarizing and kind of synthesizing the insights that you find, we find it very useful there. So we look at AI as not the entire product, but a kind of core features of our product that allow our users to really get value out of our product. But we don't want to make it the entire product, if you know if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
What we like.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, no, no. Please go ahead.
I was going to say what we've noticed is a lot of companies nowadays are building with the user in mind, so the researcher, which is great. But what we like to factor in is we're building with the respondent in mind. We really want to build a product that's a great respondent experience. Just because if your respondents are having a great experience, if your respondents are providing great data, then the rest will follow. So we're really focused on creating a really great respondent experience. So we want to focus on having great design and UI, a great kind of conversational aspect of the actual survey. Obviously, we're building for the researchers as well, but every single feature we build, whether it's AI or something else, it's always with the respondent in mind.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, just to highlight that balance, I feel like your tool is one of the most sophisticated in its quantitative, basically just survey options that you've got that we're learning about relative to peers, and then there's just all the usual suspects of just pure survey tools. And one thing I guess I did want to, there are a couple of questions I had for you. One was just thinking about, so since there are some parts of this that are more AI driven, and I appreciate that there are some that aren't, we're actually will be, by the time this is live, we'll have published a study on looking at just regular old humans doing research versus AI augmented research versus purely doing it with no humans at all, and
Right.
seeing the differences and the strengths and weaknesses. And we agree that there are still important things for the humans to do. And I guess one piece of that is some people worry about, well, are there bias or hallucinations, things like that. Can you just speak a little bit to how you're trying to address those kind of issues in your product?
Definitely. So hallucinations come up quite a. I'm not saying they happen a lot. The question of hallucinations comes up a lot when we're demoing our product, and specifically on the AI follow-up. So users are concerned, oh, what happens if there's a hallucination? At this point, the way our platform is built, there has yet to be a hallucination with any of the AI kind of probes or any of the AI follow-ups. We also don't use any synthetic data. So all of the responses that are collected, they're not synthetic, they're real humans, real responses. So there's no hallucinations there either.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And no, I think that makes, to me, without deeply understanding your product, makes a lot of sense. I guess I also wanted to ask, so maybe a little more selfishly as the researcher, how would
Mhm.
I, so if I have Voiceform and I'm using it every day as opposed to my traditional tools, how will I work differently, or how should I think about working with it? So, for example, could I test more users than I did before, or do I need to, or are there other? I should always have a mixture of mixed methods. Like, what's your thought on how someone like from the inside is going to work differently as a result of having your tool?
It's a great question. It really depends on the project you're working on, if I'm being honest. To answer your first question, you can definitely reach more users. Just with the advancements of AI, you can definitely collect a lot more qualitative responses with our tool. I think the main differentiator is you'll be able to have a lot more context behind your quantitative scores and answers and questions, which will definitely help you kind of increase your speed to insight and get to your ultimate goal for your project faster.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've talked a lot about your product, but it probably makes total sense to check out Voiceform too. So if it's okay, I'll work on calling up one of your screens, and we can go ahead and maybe you can just maybe you can set the stage. What sort of scenario you're thinking about to show us how this works?
Sure. I just wanted to show a very simple kind of voice form. We have a demo survey of a hotel company. So this is a completely fake response. We actually created it, so no real responses there, but just wanted to walk through all the kind of functionality of someone receiving a survey after visiting a hotel. I think that was it. And that was an extremely smooth transition, John. You got it up there really quick. Um, so let's dive into it. So what you see here is the voice form kind of home base. You'll have your teams on the left-hand side, and then your existing surveys or voice forms, as we call them, on the right-hand side. And for anyone wondering, we use voice forms and surveys kind of interchangeably, and we're trying to coin the term voice form is any survey or form with both audio and text-based or all audio-based questions. So why don't we dive into it here? We have a voice form demo here. As you can see, there's a few steps to create a voice form, and it's very similar to other survey platforms. We didn't want to break what was already working, for lack of a better word. So we wanted to make the flow of creating a voice form very easy. So as you can see, we offer all the kind of standard question types you'd find in a typical survey tool. Maybe we want to add a matrix table, that sort of thing. I'm going to go ahead and actually delete this one. But what we're known for are our voice response questions that look a little something like this. So with keeping the respondent in mind, you can have them respond with voice or text, and they kind of they can also listen to the response or the question rather, and they can respond with their voice and engage in a conversation. And so I was mentioning earlier that we have something called AI probing, and that's kind of the AI moderation we're all talking about these days. And essentially how it works is you set the goal. So this one we wrote, find out where the respondent prefers to stay on vacation compared to a business trip and why. So as you can see, we combine these quantitative questions with qualitative. You can also record video. And another really cool thing for UX teams, now that I'm thinking about it, is you can capture screen recordings directly in the survey. So maybe you're doing a survey where you want to understand how someone's using your product or website or anything like that. You can have them actually record their screen of them using the product. So I won't go through all the steps. Yeah, go ahead,
Oh,
John.
sorry, you got me intrigued. So is that currently is that available for like a desktop and a mobile, or just one or the other?
So it's currently available. It's actually available for both. So you can
Mhm.
capture screen recordings from both desktop and mobile.
Interesting. And do
Oh,
you?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. It's desktop only. We're working on mobile. I thought it was already live.
Okay, no worries. Well, it's exciting breaking news. And actually, I wanted to ask too: is there would there be a difference in maybe the number of questions I would ask, either more or less, because someone would be recording audio? How would that affect my survey design?
A lot less. So we find that longer surveys usually yield poorer results. We find that once respondents reach the 28-minute mark, they actually tend to start giving shorter answers, even when it comes to audio. So we find that our surveys, or our voice forms as we call them, have much shorter. They're much shorter because you're collecting a lot more information per question, and even when you do enable kind of the AI probes, it almost is. It's like you have a few questions in one sort of thing. So the surveys are much shorter, which ultimately increases response rates, and the data that you collect is very detailed and rich.
Yeah, really interesting. And well, here I'll let you sort of continue your flow. So please go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So have our own, there's a few ways to share a voice form. Standard way is the link. You can also embed it directly in your product. So maybe you're collecting some feedback on, I think I mentioned earlier, on some features or a website. You can embed a pop-up kind of like this directly into your product, and you can see a preview there of what it would look like. You can kind of change the design of the type of pop-up you'd like. I feel like this would be really interesting for UX teams. My brain is kind of just thinking as we're chatting on how Voiceform can be applied for UX more, just because obviously this is a UX focused podcast. Um, but yeah, we also have a proprietary panel of our own, as well as we work with some partner panels that are really great if you do need respondents or kind of testers for the voice form.
Oh, I've one quick question. You said at the start that you can sort of tell the tool your goals. It's funny that your example is with hotels. What we did was actually traveling with small children and special needs there that
Mm,
people might have that are maybe aren't yet fully accommodated.
sure.
If there was something that we've also worked with, scientists that do RNA studies and things like that, are there ways to help it understand like a context or some specialized language people might have?
Oh, definitely. That's a huge one. We work with a lot of banks, a lot of um, pharmaceutical companies, all sorts of companies where they have specific terms that aren't actually real words. So we have to identify those words and those terms to make sure that the transcription and our platform actually picks up on it. So you would just add that right here. And this is kind of where you set the goal on a per question level.
Hmm. Okay, great.
Cool. And then finally, once you start receiving results, there's a few things to note. So we did our demo here all on one day, but typically you'd see responses over time here. You can also filter by question. So maybe we want to see, what did everyone say about this question? We asked, nice, why do you prefer the hotel? The first thing we see is we have the top themes. So let's see everyone who mentioned cleanliness preference with positive sentiment. So it breaks it out by sentiment as well. So we can click on this one and it would filter all of those responses. So as we see there, we have the audio that we can listen to, the transcription, and we also pull quotes for the responses as well and associate them with the theme. So they may have said something different, each respondent. So this one said the rooms are clean, this one said the hotels are clean, but the whole overall theme is the cleanliness preference. So pulling themes we find is really useful as well. And let's say we want to dive deeper into a respondent. We can kind of click on a respondent there and we'll see all of their responses as we go through different respondents. So we see this one here. And then finally, we see a summary of all of the respondents as well. Something else
Oh,
to note, yep, go ahead, John.
yeah, no, I was going to ask. So is that a summary of everyone for question 39, or is that for one individual?
So this is for one individual. So we do summaries
Got
right
it.
now on an individual level. And then
Hmm.
on the question level, we do the sentiment analysis and the theme extraction.
Got it.
Um, yeah. We also support something we call partial responses. So we find a lot of people actually forget to click submit. And we don't want to lose those responses. So you will get your responses that are kind of halfway done within Voiceform. As we can see, this one is live right now. And then finally, let's go through and quickly go through this actual form just to show you what it's like for the respondent. So we'll click here. Nice. Which hotels do you stay with the most? We'll say Marriott. So it actually, we had some logic implemented. So it actually flipped that question. So let's go back and I can actually show you how the logic works here. So as you can see here, we have conditional logic. We're going to go ahead and disable all of our logic right there and go back into it. So it does refresh in real time. So if you do want to make an edit, you can always just edit it and it'll refresh. So we'll click Marriott again. And there we have it. Nice. Why do you prefer the hotel? So we'll say, I just really like the points program. I find it to be super useful. And so in real time, it's going to follow up with us, ask us kind of, can you elaborate what aspects of the points program you find most beneficial? And we wrote down in our goal, I don't know if you remember, identified I think, comparisons of staying in a hotel on vacation compared to a business trip sort of thing. So we can also respond with text and just say, stop asking me, just for the sake of this demo. And we'll move on there. We can also capture, yeah, as I mentioned, a screen recording and then an image or a video as well. And we're done. It's that simple. Our forms are really fast, so they load really quickly as well. And that may not seem like a big deal, but we find it to be really, really important.
Cool. Is there, as you've been learning, I always find it interesting to hear from folks like you. I'm sure you had a base case of how people would use your tool. Are there any of your clients or sort of adaptations that were sort of a surprise of how they're using your tool or something you didn't expect?
Every day, every day, John. I when we started Voiceform, we thought it would be really great for marketing teams doing kind of marketing surveys. And we quickly learned how powerful Voiceform could be for researchers. So we kind of evolved into the research space.
Hmm.
But what I'm noticing to answer your question is there's a new interesting use case for Voiceform every day. And while we remain focused on using Voiceform for whether it's product research or consumer insights or kind of B2B surveys, there's some really cool pronunciation surveys, keep popping up where people are just simply writing pronounce this word, and they just want to compare how people are pronouncing a certain word or even a logo. That's a cool one.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of work, a lot of multilingual work that we do, which is so cool. We thought Voiceform would just be kind of applied for English, but we see people using it. And even before we had translation capabilities and different language capabilities, they were making the surveys in their own language and kind of finding hacks to do it, which was a really cool thing as well. I could sit here all day and talk about the interesting and cool use cases of how people use Voiceform, but we would just be here for probably 3, 4 days.
Fair enough. No, no, no. I hadn't thought about that. So I'm imagining the case of pronouncing words.
Yeah,
I always think of the drug companies and having come up with a new name.
that's a huge one.
Um, well, let me actually ask, if I'm right, you've got sort of an entrepreneurial background broadly, and you could have gone a lot of different directions. So what inspired you to create this product and for this field?
There's a few answers. It's weird, but I've been obsessed with surveys for a long time. Um, so you mentioned I have kind of an entrepreneurial background. It doesn't mean that I've been successful in entrepreneurship. And so what I always used to do is essentially anytime I had an idea, I would create a survey and go test that idea with surveys. Um, and I became obsessed with surveys. I was doing surveys for fun. I wasn't getting paid for them. I was doing a different survey every week. And then I started doing surveys at work as well and customer interviews. And one thing led to another, and I found there were benefits to both. And there was no product on the market at the time that allowed you to just simply capture audio in your surveys. So we went and built it, and that's where we're at today. And in its the concept is fairly simple, but it's very useful. And I even use it today myself just to figure things out, I guess.
Cool. Well, anyway, you're in the right neighborhood. All the folks in my world think that you have exactly the right opinion of surveys and feel the same way. So you're welcome to the club. Um,
Yeah, I love surveys. I'll do surveys forever, even if yeah.
well, let me ask you too. Just as one thing I've been asking founders like you is you know kind of things that were challenging or especially things that you've kind of achieved and you're just like, yeah, we finally got that to work and it was awesome. So like proud of that. So what are some of the things that you're really happy you got to make work the way you wanted to?
I find that so you're asking what did work, because in a startup there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work every single day, but when something does work really well, it's you have to celebrate it. I would say the first positive sign was one of our first customers was actually Slack, which was really cool. And I've always looked up to Slack, used them for years. I applied to jobs at Slack, but I never got them. So this was definitely a cool experience. And the voice of the customer team there was using our product, still using our product rather. Um, Another cool, I would say the coolest experiences are usually related to some sort of market validation, whether it's a really cool inbound from a customer or learning how certain customers are now using the product. They may be signed up for using it for customer satisfaction surveys, but now are using it
Mm-hmm.
in their app for product feedback. Those are always cool. And then kind of breakthroughs with the AI piece on the conversational aspect with the probes was
Mm-hmm.
definitely kind of an aha moment, just because our users are now getting a lot more value from our product.
Well, one thing that I would say actually, or maybe two, so you mentioned it, but I want to emphasize it. I did see, quite fast speed with yours. And when you're doing surveys, if there's some sort of delay, you're just like, you're out of there. So I think
Yeah,
that actually that is a really impressive, like, it doesn't sound like a feature, but it is in that you're getting higher quality feedback and they're more comfortable and so on. Um,
yeah,
so that's cool, and this sort of combination somewhere between qualitative and quantitative is really interesting. Um,
yeah.
well, I guess I wanted to ask you too, where a couple different questions. So one is, how do you see your voice form evolving over time? And I don't want you to give away your top secrets, but just where do you see it heading? And secondarily, how do you see the whole, you mentioned market research and UX research, product discovery. How do you see that whole enterprise evolving because of these capabilities that we have at our disposal now?
I'll answer your second question first, and then I'll go into your
Sure.
first question. So we'll flip it a bit there. So we believe, and I really strongly believe that there is, and it's already happening now, there's going to be a research and kind of survey and customer feedback boom due to the rise in AI. Uh, we believe that more than ever, companies need to rely on real data, real research, not from um, a query or a prompt that you put into ChatGPT. And we're already seeing it. We're seeing that companies need to collect verified responses from real humans on how they feel about their products. So the first thing is we think that companies and research similar to ours, and there's many other ones, are going to see not only is there going to be more of them popping up, but they're going to become more powerful and just used a lot more. There's going to be more research done, which is great
Mm-hmm.
for researchers and UX professionals. Um, we see our product evolving into an entire research suite. So we aim to be kind of like the Figma, but for market research. So what we're seeing is that a number of researchers are using many tools for their studies. We aim to kind of consolidate all of that into one central tool where they can not only set goals and plan their study and execute the survey and do interviews, but also analyze and present the data and um, even monetize up the research in some ways. So that's kind of where we see it. We see it as Voiceform as being this kind of central hub of research, and we essentially want to do what Figma did for the design industry and make um, market research and research more accessible to everyone because it can be quite daunting for some people. I know that you've been in research for a while, but there's a lot of people that ask me, they're like, how do I even get started? And we want to make that process easier.
Cool. And are you imagining that, at some points there were, very specialized tools, and so, really only people like us would use them. Are you imagining that, I don't know, I'm part of the product team, or I'm in the middle of a sprint and I'm a developer and I'm curious, or
Yeah.
I guess is this sort of so some people talk about democratizing research and other people don't want to talk about that, and so but I just wonder what your perspective is, and there are definitely no right
And
answers here. Yeah.
yeah, no, and we're already seeing it, which is really cool. So we're seeing, let's say, the consumer insights team at a large bank collect feedback, and that those insights are then bubbled up to other teams. Within Voiceform, you can kind of add team members and collaborate, and so that'll go to the product team. If someone mentioned something about the product, even to the sales team to better inform the salespeople on what's working, what's selling. And so, to answer your question, I think that everyone can be a researcher in some way, shape, or form. And I think the insights that the research team finds can actually go to every team in the company, whether it's HR, sales, marketing, product, everyone.
Hmm. And actually, to that point, are you, some groups that we've talked to said, yeah, we're really focused on the little guy, the single UXer helping them out, and other people are like, no, we're definitely enterprise, large scale. We're SOC 2 compliant, etc. Where do you find yourself in terms of where your company is trying to focus in terms of like your target from that perspective?
So we definitely are SOC 2 and GDPR compliant. And while we are focused on the enterprise, we also want our product to be used by the masses. And we have a tier that you can sign up for at voiceform.com that's completely free. And you can just sign up as an individual, whether you're an academic researcher, a startup. Obviously, we would love for every deal to be enterprise and $1 million, but we also want to help the little guy as well because it's really important, and that's how we get some really good feedback as well. So I would say our customers are probably a split of 60% individuals, startups, academic researchers, and then the other 40 would be the large corporations. So we find that it's a good balance for sure. And I personally believe that you can have both. I don't think you necessarily need to focus. A lot of venture capital investors will say, no, enterprise only. Don't even worry about the others, the little guys. But sometimes we have to push back a little bit.
Fair enough. Well, no, I really appreciate this, and nice to interview a fellow Canadian too. So, well, thank you, and you answered my question about how people could give this a try. So I think we really made it. I really appreciate your time, and thanks so much for sharing Voiceform with us. I think it is something that the UX community might not know, or I didn't know as well, and so I'm glad our paths crossed. And I think it actually is really well suited. So very cool. Thank you, and
Yeah,
and
thanks, John.
of course. And here I'll close this up. So that's all for today. And thank you so much for tuning in and keeping up with the latest on AI for UX and product research. And subscribe and let us know in the comments what else you'd like to learn about user forum and what other things you'd like us to feature next. So thank you so much, and wishing you brilliant insights with AI.